Hi, yogis, it's me. And we're here embarking on what I'm calling yoga for the active aging body. And what does that mean? It means all of us, because if you're lucky enough to wake up today, your body is aging. And it doesn't matter if you're 25 or 85, we are all aging. So, what does that mean? What are we here for? Well, we're here to talk about a couple things that need to happen to age with strength, stability, and longevity. So what do we need? We need to put a little pressure, stress on our musculoskeletal system. So that means we need to put some load on joints, on muscles, and bones. So that's what we're going to do, but we're going to do it in a mindful way. And you might notice that I have a little selection of props down here on the ground. We're going to use those today. If you have a kneeler, like a garden pad, I would use that. If you don't, grab a blanket and then 2 blocks. Please, 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 2 blocks. It could be foam blocks or my preference for stability, cork blocks. You are worth the investment. Buy yourself some cork blocks. All right. It'll make a huge difference in what we're going to do. And then just an open mind about exploring movements in our bodies. So we're going to head to the floor. I'm going to grab my kneeling pad so that I have a little cushion for my knees. And then we'll go right into our cat-cows. So dropping the belly, lifting your eyeballs forward, and then rounding and tucking your chin. This time we're going to add the breath. So inhale, lift, look forward. And then exhale, tuck the belly in, tuck the chin in, round your back. We inhale to open and exhale to close. And then inhale back to neutral spine, and let's walk our hands out into a nice little puppy pose. So my preference is to stay active in your hands and keep your forearms at a hover as you lower down, and you get to seek as much opening here as you want, but keep in mind we're warming up, so things might be a little tighter and a little less willing to move right away. So just give it one more breath, and then we're going to come back into our tabletop. Take a moment, and then gentle arm circles. So what happens if you need to bend your arm? Then you bend the arm. What happens if you need to sort of turn open to get maximum fluidity? Then do it. We will improve shoulder mobility over time, but not by cranking on it. So backwards motion a couple times, and then the same thing, same operation on the left. And if you were in my body, you'd be like, wow, your left arm feels pretty different. It sure does. But that's the joy of yoga, is sort of figuring out how your body works. And sometimes I feel a little schizophrenic in my body, like it's two different people, because I think it is. So we're going to bring our hips back to our heels. Maybe you widen them off of your pad and set it to the side, or you keep your knees on your blanket or your kneeling pad. It really depends on what you can tolerate. And then we're going to go through a couple little undulating movements to get our spine woken up. So we're going to lift up, round your back like you're coming into cat, and then we're going to lower to the ground. Maybe you kiss your blocks and tell them to move. And then here we are in a baby cobra. So just enough that you can pull your shoulders away from your ears, activate your back, and then as you lower down, prepare to push back through kind of a cat, and then down into a child's pose. Stretch your arms out, breathe in, exhale, and then inhale. Repeat the process. So rounding forward, we're in kind of a half push up here, and then lowering to the ground nice and slow, and then really mild cobra. Inhale, lift, and exhale, lower down. One more time, because I really love this early movement. So back into your child's pose. Inhale, lift back up, and exhale, prepare to lower to the ground. One more little cobra here. We don't need to lift up too much, and then exhale down. We're going to press ourselves up into a tabletop, and again, this is where our kneeling pad or blanket comes in super handy. Our right foot's going to come forward, and we're going to lift up into Anjaneyasana Asana. So hands at heart center. And then your back foot, either the top of your foot is down or you're going to tuck your toes. That's yogi's choice for stability. So let your hips come forward a little bit to feel a stretch in your hip flexors on the left, and then come back up to stacked. We're going to do that a couple times, leaning forward and then coming back to stacked. One more time, leaning forward to tolerance, then back to stacked, and then let's grow the arms. Now, I'd love it if you squeezed your left glute. That's going to engage the front and back side of your left upper leg, and it makes me happy. And then the hands will come down, and you're going to switch the knees out. So step the left foot forward. Now here's where we really could benefit from blocks for our next round, so you might as well get them there. But we're going to lift up, hands at heart center for stability. Figure out what works in your back foot the best, and then hinge forward and come back to stacked. Pressing the hips forward and down, and then coming back to stacked, hip over knee. And then one more time down, just getting some warm-up stuff here. And then as you press back up, get nice and solid before you grow the arms. We're going to breathe here, lifting up and then softening down. And then your hands are going to come down to the floor so that you can lift the back knee up. And then we're going to step forward, roll all the way up. Arms are going to sweep, and then hands are going to come back to heart center. Now, if you have shoes on, you're going to still do this, but you maybe won't get the same sensation because you're going to be like gripping socks in the soles of your shoes. But if you are barefoot, go ahead and just sort of make fists with your toes. And if you are a diehard fan, you know that that is something that John McClane did for stress release, but it's just to activate the bottom of your feet. So create that little claw action with your toes and try to lift your arches up a little bit. That should really start to wake up the tone in your foot. And then soften that down, take a big breath in, and then we're going to do a really soft fold forward. Here come the blocks. So I'm going to take the blocks and put them right underneath my hands. Then I'm going to soften. So I've brought the floor to me. You can have your hands away from the blocks, but we're just trying some stuff. And then press into the blocks to lift up halfway. The goal here is to have our back nice and straight, looking over the tip of our nose. And then as we round forward, the back rounds. Inhale, lift up halfway. And then softly fold forward. So the blocks are just helping us find some stability. And you notice my legs are really bent. That's the best way for me to do this. Inhale, half lift, and then one more fold. Now, we're going to lift up halfway. Step your left foot back. Bring the blocks to frame your right foot, and then we're going to bend in and out of the right knee. Oh my gosh, this is so delicious with my hands on the blocks, you guys. I'm telling you. It's allowing me to get a lot straighter in my leg than if my hands were on the floor. So we're just going to do that one or two more times, and then we're going to transition to the other side. So tilt your hips up, step your left foot forward, and then just step the right foot back. And then bend and straighten into the left leg. I'm telling you, having the blocks just gives us that feeling of ease of movement. And that's what yoga is trying to promote in our bodies, right? Not to make ourselves into pretzels, but to find some serenity and movement and be able to pay attention to our breath. So straightening there, we're going to bend back into the knee, tilt our hips up to create room to step forward. And you can always go 1, 2 steps forward before you lift. And then hands back to heart center. Take a breath. Exhale. Inhale, lift back up. And then we're going to fold forward again. You can use the blocks every single time. I'm going to take mine to the lower setting because we're going to do something else here in a second. But you can keep them as high as you like. So we're in a half lift here, straighter in the back, and then softly folding. And then we're going to lift up halfway to prepare. I'm going to move the blocks back to framing my feet, step the left foot back, Walk the left foot over a little bit and then press into the blocks and come up into a standing lunge. Ooh, that's really nice. Now, your right hand's gonna come to your hip and your left hand's gonna come down for that block we just left. Now, spinning open, this right hip's gonna wanna poke over, so you just give it a little help to come back towards center. And if it feels good to lift your arm, do it. Otherwise, keep it right here. Really nice. And then bring that hand back down, and you got it. We're gonna step forward and step back. Now, we're gonna lift up. This is helping train our balance. And then left hand to your hip, right hand to the block, spin open. Be aware of where your left hip is going. Maybe encourage it back to the center. And if it helps or feels good to lift your arm, go ahead and do it. But if it's bothersome to your shoulder, bring it back to your hip. No worries. Chest back down towards the floor. We're going to tilt our hips up to create room. Step forward. Lift all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, lift again. And then we're going to fold. Halfway lift, even coming onto your fingertips feels really nice here. And then as you step your left foot back, we're going to rise back up into our crescent and then right into our standing twist. So pause here. Again, that right hip can come a little closer in, but if that made you wobble, step a little wider with the left foot. Ooh, yes. And then if you want to grow the arms, great. Now here's your first balance challenge. This left hand is coming down to your block. So I would take my right hand to my hip, look down at the block, place the hand, push the hip in a little bit, and then here we go. We're going to do that again just to get a little more fluidity. So bring the right hand down, lift all the way back up, reset, hands to heart center, breath in, exhale, twist, and then we're going to look down at the block. Right hand to your hip, hand down, and open if you like. Really nice. And then the hand comes down, tilt the hips up, step forward. Lift. Oops, I hit my poor mat that did nothing to deserve it. And then forward bend. Halfway lift. Step your right foot back, step it over nice and wide, and then come up. Yes. And then the hands are coming to heart center. We're going to take that little twist to the left, pulling your left hip in, squeezing your thighs towards each other. Beautiful. And then your goal is to get this right hand down to the floor or your block. So left hand on your hip, reach down while looking down, bring the hip back in, maybe you lift the hand. Pay attention to how this is feeling, not just in your shoulder, but in your hip. And then hand comes back down, prepare and re-lift. Really nice. Hands back to heart center, twist again, looking down, hand to hip, right hand to the block, spin and lift. Really nice. And then look back down to the block, hand down, tilt your hips up, step forward, rise. Now, we're going to take a moment here, reclaim your breath, and then we're going to sit down into a baby chair, right? We have babies everything in yoga, baby grasshopper, baby cobra, baby crow. So why not baby chair? So just enough that you feel the backside of your body start to wake up. Pull your inner thighs towards each other for stability. That actually might activate your inner pelvic floor muscles, or we call that mula bandha in yoga. And then we're just going to kind of pause here, maybe grow your hands. And then as you release, lift your left foot up and stack it on the block, right? So we're in a one-legged mountain. I'm on the tippies of my left toes. I can even lift my knee a little bit higher and have just the tip of my left toe on the block, but I'm not trying to overdo it. This is enough to give us a challenge of balance, but still have some stability under our foot. Now, bring that foot back to the ground, forward fold. Come all the way up, and then hands back to heart center. Sit down into a baby chair. Your arms can extend if that works for you. And then as you press into your left leg, set your right toes on the block. Now you could be on the tippies of your toes, you could be on the floor, but I want you to just get the sensation of having the stability of the block under your foot and still work on some balance, because we're going to use that. And then press up, release the foot to the ground, forward fold, halfway lift. Plant your hands on the block, step the left foot back, walk your right foot over maybe for more room, and then back to our crescent lunge. Breathe. And then here's where I want you to bring your knee to the floor and hands to heart center, or hands to heart center, knee to the floor, and then back down to our blocks. Untuck the toes, press your hips forward, breathe. And then as you tilt backwards, maybe you lift the toes of your right foot, but see my hands are elevated. Should make this a little less traumatic. And then back into the knee, tuck the toes, lift up, and then you guessed it, tilt up, step forward, rise. Hands to heart center, baby chair. This should feel good and interesting, just enough to get your own attention. So we're going to breathe it out here. Maybe lift all 10 toes. I want you to press down equally into the outside edges and inside edges of your feet. So we're not peeling out, we're not dumping in. So nice and even. And then we're going to release up and then back down to your blocks. Fold forward, halfway lift, and then we're going to step the right foot back. And I'm going to walk that left foot over for greater stability. Come up. And then this is the challenge. Hands are going to come to heart center maybe this time first, and then slowly lower your knee to the ground. If that was impossible, here's what I'm going to tell you. Back up to here, come here, drop the knee, then reclaim, okay? So what I want you to figure out is how to puzzle your way into some of these poses. They're not going to be impossible forever. They're just going to give you a challenge in the moment. And then hands are going to come back to your blocks, and then we're going to play with that shifting back. So this time we're trying to lift the toes of the left heel just a little bit more, but still finding some ease. One more time. And then back into the knee lift, the step forward, the rising. Woo! And then back into your chair right away, right away. Now we're going to press all of our weight into our right foot, lift our left foot up, knowing we can put our left foot on the block or keep it at a slight hover this time. So we're just trying to build on success. If your foot's on the block, make sure it's at a nice distribution between both hips. And then we're going to start to lean forward. Then you're going to pick your foot off the block and start to hover it back behind you. This knee is bent here on the right. And then we're just going to slowly bend the knee until the toes find the ground. Look, here's the blocks. Walk your foot over. Now we claim the crescent again. I know it seems repetitive, but the more you do this, the more it'll come natural in your body. Hands to heart center and a little twist. If you're feeling really stable, arms can open here, but don't let it torque your shoulder. Now, that hand's coming back to the ground. Hand can stay up this time, and then this hip that wants to be naughty and point towards you, I'm going to pull him back. And then we'll just see what we can do here. Maybe you push the back heel forward a little bit and bring the hand down, step forward, rise up, and then hands to heart center. We're going to step the right foot up onto a block or to a hover. Right? The hover is a little more of a balance challenge, but you can have it right next to it so you can set your toes down. And then we're going to start to lean. Leaning is going to help us pick this foot up and begin to track it to the back of our mat. Pause and hold it there. And then the left knee will bend to bring the toes to the ground. For stability, hands can come down, heel toe the left foot over, and then we rise up. Yep. Little bit stronger, little less wobble. That's what we're looking for. Hands to heart center, take a twist, maybe you open, and then to get your hand to the block, I would look down first, and then the hip's gonna come back in towards the midline. Maybe you press the back heel forward a little bit, breathe here, and then the hand comes down. Now listen, step this back foot back a little bit and bring your right knee to the mat. And hopefully you have that cushion underneath it like I do. And then swim that back knee around. We're gonna take our blocks to their lowest setting. You're gonna love these cork blocks. I'm telling you, I'm telling you. And then your hands are underneath your shoulders. Maybe they turn out just a smidge. Now we're gonna lower down like a quarter of the way, okay? This is a lot, but we're purposely adding load to get stronger, and then press back up and press away into an elevated hand child's pose. And then we're gonna come back, straighten your back. You can always be in a tabletop here. Just move your blocks a little bit closer. We're not going all the way to the floor. We're just bending mindfully. This is enough for me to feel it. And then press back up and maybe sit back into a little child's pose. Trying to build your upper body strength a little bit. You can always take the blocks away, but remember, we're not going to the floor. One more time, because I like things in threes, right? So if you're doing the straight back version, got a block, have the blocks out a little further, and then lower down about a quarter to a third of the way. So your elbows do not pass your back. Ooh, that's too juicy for us. At least for me. I won't talk for you. You get to pick. And then press yourself up and release the blocks to the side for a regular tabletop. Just as a palate cleanser, let's get that right knee out to the side and do some smooth circles. And then you're going to get the left knee out to the side and do some smooth circles going both directions. Now, we're going to come through a little bit of a flow, but we're going to take our time and we're going to use our blocks as needed. But we're going to walk our hands out and we're going to lower our way to the ground. Ooh. And then don't even worry about the pad, just find locust, right? So your toes are lifting, your hands are lifted by your hips, your chest is hovering just enough that you feel sensation in your entire back. So letting your shoulder blades come down and alongside your spine, and then your neck is pretty neutral. You're just sort of going side to side, breathing, and then hands come up. I prefer them sub-armpit or armpit at least. Toes come down, press up into a tabletop, and then bring your right foot forward between your hands. And this is where you just have to have it in your practice to get the blocks under your hands, lift the back knee up, and then press up into your crescent, and then dial the back heel down into warrior one. So same setup in the legs, we just dial the back heel down, and then we're gonna experiment with leaning. We've already done it once. Now we're just gonna lean forward enough so that our back is in a line with our back leg, and then inhale, lift back up. One more time, lean forward just enough. Squeeze your arms towards each other, and then lift back up. Now, straighten into the right leg for a little release. And then hands are gonna find the block. Bring your left knee to the ground. Pull your right knee back behind you. And then if you want, let's try this no blocks. Lowering all the way to the ground, nice and slow for locust. Beautiful. Notice I'm not trying to like turn my body into a U shape. I'm just creating a gentle, even tone. And then let's bring our hands to armpit level or below, press up into a tabletop, and bring the left foot forward between our hands. Here comes block one and block two. We lift up, we find our crescent, and then we dial the back heel down. Whew, that should feel pretty good. And then we're experimenting with that lean. Airplane the arms, feel the under part of your left leg turn on, and then inhale, lift back up. And then exhale, close it off. One more time, inhale, lift it up. And then as you come forward, really squeeze your shoulder blades towards each other. And when we lift out of this, left leg straightens for a little bit of relief. Your hands will come down. You'll turn to the ball of your right foot, bring the right knee down, and then swing that leg back. And then let's take a chance on block-free lowering. So this time I'm going to let you pick. Do you want cobra, nice easy cobra, or a nice easy locust? They're both super important for the backside of our body, our posterior chain, and then hands come back and we press ourselves up into that tabletop. Now this time we're going right into the warrior one. So if you need a little help to get the foot forward, use the blocks. Have them at least underneath your shoulder line. Lift up the back foot and dial the heel down. Then press into the blocks, lift up into your warrior one. Breathe, and then right hand's coming to the hip, left hand's coming to the block. Now, I would take it to the highest setting here. We're not going to straighten this leg right away. We're just going to twist to the amount our back allows, and see how my back is in the same line as my back leg. We just did this in warrior one. And then growing the arm is an option. So is pushing your hip a little more back towards the center line. And then the hand comes down, fix the block, knee down, other knee back, tabletop position, right? And then left foot forward, back heel comes down, press into the blocks, warrior one. Really nice. So we're strong here. And then we're going to bring the right hand to the block. I like a little extra help here with this rotation. So left hand on the hip. My left hip really wants to scoot to the top of my mat, but I'm going to pull it back around, maybe widen my feet. And then let's see about lifting here. Revolved is really challenging in most bodies. So go really soft. Take your hand down towards the floor like you're going to pat the air. You're just patting the air all the way down. Fix your block. Turn to the ball of your right foot. Bring your right knee to the ground. This is just helping us transition. And then let's go one more time to the ground. So shift forward, lower. And then your choice, cobra or locust. Lower down, press up, and back into child's pose. Now, if you like a wide-kneed child's pose, go ahead and take it. If you don't like child's pose, do something else, right? There are plenty of bodies that don't necessarily like this hip compression, and that's totally fine, right? So find something that doesn't feel as icky in your body. I just kind of like an elevated child's pose when I've been working. I get a little claustrophobic when I'm breathing faster and my face is mashed into the mat, but that's maybe just my psychosis. So you do what's right for you. And then we're going to lift back up, bring your knees back underneath you, step your right foot forward. You can have blocks under your hands to help lift you up. Step your left foot forward and then come all the way back up. Beautiful. Now I'm going to turn towards you because we're just going to do a little workshop with one of my favorite balancing poses, which is tree pose. So we're going to take our block and put it on its flat setting. And then I'm going to step my left foot on top of it and then rotate my knee to the side. I'm magically in tree pose, right? I mean, this is tree pose. Maybe my foot's not on my leg, but if you want, you can sort of like shimmy that over. But this is getting the shape in our body with the stability of pressing into that block. And then if you lift your hands and bring them to a goal post or back behind you, whatever you like, or hands at heart center. So we really focus on leg. And then if you want, just experiment with lifting the toes. And then you'll feel how that is an uptick of ask on your right leg. And that's okay. You can always take the toes back to the block. And then we're going to turn it back forward and then repeat on the other side. So this is not a cheater tree pose at all. This is an assisted tree pose where we're focusing on balance and integrity in our joints. So turning the knee outwards, feeling that opening of your hip, pressing a little bit down into the block, doing something fun with your hands. You can always do like a mudra if that's your jam today. But then seeing if you can sort of float the toes just for a moment. And you'll feel your ankle move, your toes sort of gripping. That's the beauty of this. It should not be stuck. It should not be locked. It should be a little bit mobile so the upper part of you can find balance. And you notice I'm not gritting my teeth. I'm not falling just yet. You got to stay focused. You keep talking, you're going to fall out of it. And then you just release and take your feet to the earth. So you start where you start. And if you think that this is the only way to do tree pose, you got another thing coming. There are so many variations of tree pose that I want you to just get it in your practice to find the most stable, the most supportive version for you, and then see where it goes over time. So you can put the foot here, it can start to grow, it can start to grow, it can start to grow, right? But this is not any more valuable than this, okay? So the block is a super helpful tool, but it is not to be used as an excuse to not try to challenge yourself, okay? So we get stable first and then we play. Now let's bring ourselves to the ground. And as I say to my classes, let's not ruin an opportunity to get stronger by just plopping to the earth. So toes are going to turn out a little bit wider, feet at least shoulder width, and then we're just going to come down into a squat. You're going to stop eventually, right? And then maybe at this stage, you get a block or two handy, and you bring them out in front of you, and you lift your heels up, and you come even a little bit lower, right? And then maybe you move the blocks back behind you to assist you to come to your seat. Over time, we're going to peel those blocks away, and you're going to go all the way to the ground without needing them. But right now, remember, today we're talking about using support. We want to come through these transitions safely first, as my mother used to say, safety first. And then as our confidence and strength builds, we won't need them as much. But it's really important to know how to use them, okay? So let's come down onto our backs. Oh, a little bit of bridge pose here. And I'm going to encourage you to use your arms in this bridge pose. So you're going to lift your hips up a mild amount, and then press into the ground with your arms and feel how that activates your chest, your back, and your shoulders. We're not going for ultimate lift. We're keeping our chest, legs, and hips in the same line. We're just pressing down to create a little bit of tension, and then press your knees towards each other. They shouldn't touch, but they're coming towards each other, creating a really nice action here in your mid-body, top and bottom. And then lower down, take a moment, and then we're going to do that same thing again, but I want you to walk your feet a little bit further and lift your toes off the ground. You're going to lift your hips up a decent amount, but remember, keep everything in a straight line, and then press your heels down, squeeze inward, and then press into the ground with your arms. So this should feel pretty active. I want you to feel the back side of your legs, your glutes, the front side of your body is not straining. Your arms are taking some of the load, and then lower down. We're going to bring our knees into our chest. And then I like a little side to side rock. There are like a million zillion things we could be doing here, but today is today, right? So let's bring our hands behind our knees and pull our knees a little more down. Now, my feet are coming up and out, so I'm kind of in a assisted happy baby. I know most of you probably have seen people reaching for their toes or their heels or their feet. I want you to stay here to create that downward pull with your hands and a little bit of press into your hands with your legs. So we're creating strength in a lengthened position. This is where our body is going to rocket forward as far as its strength profile. So instead of just doing a passive thing where we're grabbing onto our toes and yanking on them, we're creating this little push-pull sensation that's over time way better for us. And then the knees come back together, and we're going to take our feet up towards the ceiling. Now, a couple ankle rolls here will never hurt anybody. And then you see that my knees are pretty bent. That's just because I'm pretty tight in the back body. Probably will be until I quit doing the other things I like to do. And then we're just going to keep our legs floating up. So soft here. I'm using some of my muscular control in my arms to hold my legs in place, but I'm softening everything else. My belly, my face, my legs, everything's just sort of releasing. And then we're going to bend the knees, bring your feet to the ground. And now here's one other thing I want to talk to you about. Reclined bound angle, or reclined butterfly pose. Most people start with their heels like just jacked up by their hips. And man, that creates a lot of strain for me. So what I want you to do is walk your feet as far forward as you can with them still touching. So get like a really wide diamond shape going, and then release your knees out to the side. And this is where, if that's still not enough, you bring your blocks to the outside edges of your knees. What we're looking for is responsible hip opening here. So if this feels like someone's just like yanking you, like they're tearing a drumstick off a chicken, then this is wrong for us, right? We need to find release. I know that was a pretty dark metaphor, but you see what I'm saying. Like, this should not feel terrible. And if you give this a couple moments, right, and you soften, you breathe, you allow your muscles and tissues to just kind of find a little bit of release, then maybe you can just softly bring your feet a little bit closer. And then as you come back down, check in with that sensation right here in the crease of your hip and see if that's enough, too much, or just a little bit on the easy side, right? Like you're like, I'm not even feeling this. So if you're like, I don't really feel this, two things. You can take the blocks away, or you can encourage the knees up a little closer and keep the blocks. So what we're seeking is sensation, the right amount of sensation for you, and then passively allowing our body to release into it. So we're not pushing, we're not straining, we're just like, hey, everybody, now's your time to chill. And then breathe. At this point, you're in an excellent position to go right into Shavasana. You could also bring your way back into knees together and come into a little side lying twist here, arms at a goalpost, knees either direction, right? You just take a little side twist and then bring them back through center, realign, and then bring the knees to the opposite side. Right, this is all extra at this stage. If you're like, nope, Shavasana, that's what I want, I love that for you. And then Shavasana, for many people, is our traditional corpse pose, where your hands come alongside your body, your legs open up, and you soften your breath, you soften your body. Maybe you allow your eyes to close, whatever feels comfortable in your body. This is what you do. And you can stay here anywhere from 1 to 20 minutes, right? The longer you stay in Shavasana, the greater the release, the greater you will allow your mind to have its own playground of softness and curiosity. But let's all just give it another breath or two before I send myself on my way. And then I am just a gentle peel up person. Sometimes I go through a side lying position, sometimes I don't. And then I like to come into an easy seated pose with my hands at heart center. It's a way for me to acknowledge you and to acknowledge our practice together. And it just feels right in my body. So I consider this my easy seated pose to close off practice. I need you to find yours. And then together we'll take a final breath just to seal our practice for today. Big full breath in and send it out. Aging is inevitable, my friends, but fragility, losing mobility, losing strength, losing flexibility is not inevitable. We can work, we can continue to grow our way through the years. We just have to do it mindfully, and sometimes we have to do it with some props so that we can keep doing things with that goal of ease, balancing our effort. And that way we can do yoga until we no longer draw our pranayama breath. And isn't that a wonderful way to just keep going through life? I hope so for you. I hope it's that way for me. It's been wonderful to practice with you today. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. Namaste.